Hi Gaurav,
Hi Ravikant, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too, thank you.
Hi Gaurav, I'll just say hi and I will switch off.
Hi
Uh,
Ninad, hi, so nice to see you. Been a
Good to
long
see you.
time.
I know.
Uh,
So Ravi is the boss of the session. I'm just going to mute and switch off the video. Over to you, Ravi.
Yeah.
sure.
Thank you. Shall we start?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the CII Western Region Startup Subcommittee, I want to welcome you all to this session, which is titled Music Technology and Artists. Quite frankly, I'm reasonably sure that the title is not going to do justice, to our guest this evening, Gaurav Dagaonkar. And after whom I've known for a couple of years, a few years now. But more importantly, when I was running through the gamut and diversity of work that he's done, I don't think any amount of introduction will do justice. So therefore, what I'm just going to start off by saying, and the rest will unravel, is that Gaurav is a man of many parts. He is the co-founder of Hooper, which is India's leading music licensing marketplace that actually provides copyright-free music to content creators. And I think this impacts a lot of us because and that's one of the reasons for choosing this session, because so many of us have overnight begun to believe that we are content creators, right? So I think what Gaurav does and his team does impacts everyone here. Uh, Besides brands, filmmakers, agencies, and so on and so forth. So that's what Hooper does. Uh, Gaurav, first off, for those of you who don't know, Gaurav started life, if I may dare say, quite ordinarily, being an engineer, uh, and then an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, but then suddenly decided to, get into a career in music. My first question to you, Gaurav, is how did this transformation suddenly happen? This is most unlike, what one would expect.
Absolutely. First of all, Ravi, thank you so much for inviting me. Really happy to be here with you and everyone else. For me, when I was doing engineering, just like many other engineers, I fell in love with the guitar. I was listening to a lot of rock music back then. And what happened was when I wrote my first song, I remember it was the third year of engineering, and I composed my first song on the guitar. And sometimes, Ravi, just the way somebody decides to create a startup, something transforms within you. It can't be explained. And for me, it was a moment of clarity that I want to become an artist. It was so clear. I would have probably been, about 20 years old at that time, but it was absolutely crystal clear in my mind that this is something I would love to do. And I, of course, continued studying for my engineering. It's not like I sort of stopped studying. And I think, just like many other folks here, my parents would have not allowed that either. But I was also quite clear that I want to complete my education to the maximum possible extent. Because I come from an academic family. My father is an engineer in MBA. My mom is a professor. Of course, they're both retired now. But uh, I was very clear I want to do an MBA, and hence, when I got into IIM Ahmedabad, I grabbed that opportunity with both hands because ultimately it is education, right? And I would say that after such a long time, it's come completely handy for me to build and run my business. But the seeds were planted during engineering. And when I was doing my MBA, also, I continued with the same dream. So you might feel that I am, exaggerating, but I'm not. Even in the first week of IIM during our orientation, I had declared to the campus that post my MBA, I will not, sit for placements and I will become an artist. And I did my internship with a music company just to understand the business better. So there is a very well-known music label called Times Music, and I did my internship, summer internship there. Those 8 weeks taught me a fair bit of what it takes to make, market, produce albums. And mind you, this was a time before Spotify and YouTube. So you had to have, it was a very different era. And I felt that by the time I finished my MBA, I was quite ready, both in terms of my education was done, I had worked with a label, I had worked on my craft. So it may have seemed like an overnight decision then, but it had its seeds, or rather, you know, it was in the making for a few years before that.
And you also formed a band, is it Synchronicity?
Oh, yes, that actually came much later. But since you mentioned this, I had actually formed a band even when I was studying at IIM Ahmedabad. So in the second year, you get plenty of time. So I went out, I scouted a lot of musicians across Ahmedabad, and I formed a band with them. And we actually used to perform over the weekends in Ahmedabad. So I was doing a lot of these fun things also. And Synchronicity, of course, came in 2012 when I had started doing films at on one side as a music director, and I also wanted to sing on the other side. So that is when Synchronicity happened.
And so besides forming a band and singing, you've also been a music composer and you composed for movies, right?
That's right. So after I finished my MBA, I came back to Mumbai. I struggled for about a year, met a lot of musicians, record labels with my album. I eventually got a label deal, a record label deal with Universal Music. It's pretty much the largest record label in the world. And I did an album with them. After that, Ravi, what happened was that around 2010, 2011, uh, this was also in the formative years of both YouTube and Spotify and so on. And I realized that films would be the right way to progress my career because I wanted to move up the chain. And I got very heavily into learning Hindustani classical. I started studying popular film soundtracks. And I bagged my first film in 2011. And then I went on to do about 12 to 13 movies as a music director. So I became like now I'm in a very different avatar, as an entrepreneur. But I think for about 10 to 12 years of my life, I was a full-time music composer, singer, artist with my own studio, and very fortunate to have singers like Sonu Nigam, Arijit Singh, Shreya Ghoshal, KK, Shan. They have all sung my songs, and I learned a lot in those 10 to 12 years. In fact, I think a lot of what I do today, the learnings of that came during that period of time when I was actively composing music for films and for ads.
Awesome. And so you were obviously well placed to understand what the gaps were or what the problem was in the music ecosystem, especially in the area of copyrights, right? That's what Hooper largely does.
Yes.
What is that gap that you identified at that point in time, which eventually led to the creation of Hooper?
The first and the biggest problem, which continues till today, is that artists are not aware of their own rights. I think, unfortunately, with 90% artists, I can say with complete confidence, they are neither aware, and the sad truth is, they are neither bothered about their copyright. They are so much into their creativity, Ravikant, you won't believe that उनका मेन एजेंडा है कि अच्छे गाने बनाओ, ऑडियंस के सामने परफॉर्म करो. Their happiness comes from there. They in fact try to run away from everything which is, legal, technical, and sometimes even financial. Like the reason why I keep saying this, and especially now to young artists who come to Hooper, many of them are not aware that music can create a beautiful passive income source for you after about 10 to 12 years of your career. But it will only happen when you register your works and when you're aware of your rights. The problem is when you're young, you just want work so badly that you are foregoing a lot of these issues. So I think the first problem begins with the fact that there is lack of awareness amongst artists about their rights. The second problem is that when it comes to using music or paying for music, unfortunately, today's ecosystem has become such that music is considered to be a free commodity. And I can say this with a lot of humility, even as an artist and a music tech entrepreneur, that the biggest challenge we face actually is convincing a user of music to actually pay for it. And if I were to take a few minutes and take everyone back to say the 90s or even before that, music actually had fairly sound unit economics, just like most other businesses. There used to be a time when labels put out cassettes, CDs, they were all sold. There was distribution that the labels themselves had. And just like any other product, music was purchased, right? I'm sure you would remember the time when you liked a song on the radio, then you went and bought a cassette or a CD and so on, right? The problem happened in the early 2000s and continued where music became a digital product and it became free, where everyone started downloading MP3s. And post that, once the Spotify's and the Googles of the world came in, what they started doing was to basically increase user acquisition. They offered music for free, where you listen to a few ads and so on, and you'll be able to get the music for free. So, unfortunately, as we stand today, the music industry has become devoid of any unit economics. Sure, I mean, you get some money per stream, but even the labels, which earlier used to sell eventually to consumers, today are essentially becoming B2B players where all they want to do is some large deals with an Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and a few other folks. They have completely lost the distribution power, which now has shifted in the hands of the streaming platforms and the tech giants, right? So, in that process, जो बलि का बकरा था वो था गाना. गाना फ्री हो गया, and all you have to do even today on YouTube is listen to two ads and you can listen to a song free.
Right.
The side effect of this is when today brands are using music on Instagram and YouTube to promote their products, and there are thousands of brands doing it every day. The general tendency is, why pay for something like this. And even on Instagram today, an individual user is able to use music free of cost in his reels or short format videos. So that mentality unfortunately has extended to other areas where it's a little damaging for the industry. So this is the second problem, that the reduction of music to becoming a free commodity. The first was the lack of awareness amongst artists.
Right.
The second was music being reduced to a free commodity. The third is labels becoming more of B2B players than having any kind of unit economics. And the fourth, I think, overall is a general lack of awareness in this country about licensing. And I think it is now coming around. Bodies like the IPRS or startups like Hooper are doing stuff here. But there is a serious lack of awareness. Like I will not name this brand, but we met a brand about 4 or 5 months ago, and they're probably doing revenues in excess of 20 or 1,000 crore a year. Very, very heavy on content creation. You would expect that these guys would really know their stuff. And literally, this brand single-handedly had about 200, 300 videos just in the last 12 months in which they have used Bollywood music without any license. And when we showed it to their team, there was a lot of panic. They had no idea that we were supposed to pay. Today, they are a Hooper client, and hence I don't want to unnecessarily name and shame them. But genuine lack of awareness here. And I noticed this back in, I would say 2019, when TikTok had become fairly big in India before it was banned. And a lot of people had started using music in their reels, or rather the TikTok videos. And that was the first time I sort of encountered that, hey, this could become the way of advertising in the future. And this is where music could be, underappreciated. So the seeds of that came in about 2019. And I don't think I would have been so concerned about it had I not spent 10 odd years in the music industry before that.
Yeah, and which is why I said that you were probably very well placed to understand the gaps and the problem areas, because you were a musician and a composer yourself, right? And you worked in
That's
the music
right.
industry.
I think I would have done about 100 odd jingles for brands. At that time, it was mainly for television commercials. So in TVCs, brands usually pay an agency and the agency pays a
Correct.
music director. So I understood how a brand works and what are their requirements. of course, being a fairly educated artist, I had also taken the pains to register all my works with societies like the IPRS. In fact, we have just done a deal with the IPRS, and one of the proud things was I have been an IPRS member for the last 14 years.
Oh,
So
awesome.
I understood the mechanics of everything. What is mechanical royalty? What is performance royalty? What is synchronization royalty? And many times I used to see these violations and notice that, okay, XYZ brand has done this. At that time, I didn't have the business, so I didn't do anything about it. But you're right. I was fairly well placed with my decade of being a professional musician. And then I think with my engineering and MBA background to make use of that.
Absolutely. And before I get on to what Hooper is doing, and this entire thing of micro sync licensing, and how Hooper helps. One question is, while you mentioned these various factors, how has it affected artists and their revenues? Revenue in general and the role of artists. How has all this affected them?
I would say let's rewind back to about 2012 or 2013. A few pivotal things have happened in the last decade. The first is that emergence of these streaming platforms like YouTube, Spotify, and all happened, which made it very easy for the common man to now just put up a song, stream it to anybody. You don't need a record label anymore, honestly, to release anything. You can freely be, for example, if a youngster in your family decides to be an artist, they don't need any support of any label. They can just make a song and put it up on any streaming platform. The second bit that happened was the democratization of music creation itself, because creating music became digital. Back in 2000s or 90s, you needed a studio, a lot of live musicians, an orchestra, this, that, to create music. But pretty much since 2012, 10 or 12, making music became really easy. So, what happened in the last decade and will happen a lot more going forward was an abundance of supply of music and comparatively lesser demand. So, what started happening was music became more of, as I said, a free commodity, and also more about the platforms being a way of getting discovered. So, for artists today, in all honesty, unless you are a celebrity artist with hundreds of millions of streams, I could say this for 99% artists, they don't care about their revenues from streaming. I have met in the last 2 to 3 years about 500, 600 artists in person, and many of them have barely made any money from streaming. It can amount to $15 to $20 a month at most. It's that less. You can probably buy sandwiches for your band and yourself. So many of them, almost all of them, rely on live shows for their majority of the income. So
Right.
artists का फंडा simple हो गया है. They have uh, started releasing a lot of music on streaming platforms, but 90 to 95% of their income comes from either live shows or producing music for somebody. So it's like a gig, a freelancer kind of a, you have to do some work in order to be able to earn money. Passive income or income from licensing or streaming still forms very less of revenue from for an artist. Having said that, that is about to change now. Like what we believe now is, given this extreme emergence of digital content being created, artists are now becoming a lot more aware because they see their music being used by brands and influencers. But right now, even as it stands, 90 to 95% of an artist's income comes from freelance projects, and about 5 to 10% comes from other sources like streaming.
Sure. So, no, that's having set the context. I thought we should now jump into what Hooper does and what it offers.
Sure.
So, if you can tell us about what Hooper does, the space of microsync licensing, and why it's becoming crucial today. Given that there is so much content, be it shorts, brand-driven content, and so on and so forth.
Is it okay if I share my screen, or
Sure.
if I could do that, I think it'll be easy for me to just share with everyone, because it's a very unique space, right? So if you can see my screen, you'll see this is Zepto, right? It has created a reel and it has used music in it. And we don't realize this, Ravi, but there are 80,000 brands creating about 30 to 35,000 branded content videos every single day in India. So this is Domino's, this is Semi Show creating a video. They have used a very popular. Now, apart from creating a video on their own Instagram handle, sometimes they also engage influencers who create these videos and they also use music. Now, what happens is if you use trending music in your reels, the engagement for every reel shoots up by almost 40 to 50%, and in some cases, even 5x or 6x. So, using trending music has become very crucial nowadays for most brands who are creating content. But the problem happens that this trending music often belongs to music companies. So the moment you use this kind of music without any licensing, you are liable to get a lawsuit from a music company. The pain is only felt like insurance. When that thing hits you is when you realize that, oh my God, we are in trouble. So this is the recent example where Sony actually sued Myntra for over 5 crore. This actually was talked about in the media. 90% of the deals are not even, these lawsuits are not even spoken about in the media, but it's happening in a bigger and bigger manner where, labels are becoming much more stringent about, hey, it's my song. You're promoting your product. The influencer got paid. The activity happened around my song. So why didn't I get paid? And it's only fair to ask that question. But then here's another problem that if you go to these labels and you want to license a song, and probably you may have encountered this in your years of experience in media, a label can quote any amount they feel like. There is no rate card here. On one day, they might quote 10 lakh, the other day, they might quote 1 crore also for that one particular song. Now, these amounts used to work in the era of television commercials, and they might still work in the era of movies. But imagine a Zepto is making 1,500 to 2,000 reels every year. There's no way it's going to pay 20 lakh for a reel like this, which doesn't even cost 5,000 rupees to make. So the challenge, or where we noticed a big gap, was that brands and influencers want to use this music, but they cannot go to labels, they cannot afford what labels are quoting, and they are getting these lawsuits, right? And the last problem is, okay, even if I have the money to pay, how do I know what music is right for my brand, right? There is some amount of intelligence also. What kind of music should I use? So as you can see, Hooper is India's first platform that is licensing all of these trending songs on Instagram, YouTube, and so on to brands. So as you can see, these songs like Ude Dil Befikre, this is a song by Sidhu Moosewala. Gatti Kali is a very popular song by Neha Kakkad. All of these songs are actually trending. So if a brand uses this song right now, they will probably get at the very least 30 to 40% more spike in their engagement, shareability, click-through rates. And unlike the earlier pricing of lakhs, you can actually see that these songs are priced in the thousands. So 5,000 rupees for a song and so on. Yes, there are some songs which are sensitive and there is a price on request, but otherwise you'll see that mostly they fall in the affordable bracket. Our main audience here, ours is a B2B business. It is mainly for brands and influencers. So when they pay, let's say this is Lapata, right, from Ekta Tiger, if a brand licenses it for 15,000, they can use it in one of their Instagram reels. They can publish it onto 3 different platforms like YouTube, Snapchat, maybe their own app also, or Instagram. And it is cleared for perpetuity. So they don't have to worry about it. That reel will remain up for perpetuity. And apart from this business, which is more of licensing third-party songs, and here we have a simple revenue share model with labels and artists. So they get a majority of the revenue. We keep a certain platform commission, about 35-40%. is what we keep as our platform commission. The rest is passed on to the label.
Okay.
So we've now got 21 labels over here, and we've got about 1,500 odd independent artists whose songs are also here. So for them, it's now a great way to monetize. An independent artist can list their songs for even cheaper, like 2,000 rupees, 599 rupees,
There you are. Yeah.
and so on. So that is one part of our business. We also, Ravi, have our own catalog of about 5,000 plus songs, which we completely own as Hooper. And what we do in this part of the business is not a pay-per-use model, but a subscription model, mainly for YouTubers. So we, at 599 rupees a month, we offer YouTubers a chance to download and license all of this copyright safe music and use it in their YouTube videos. And there also, we've got a very thriving business, close to 3.5 lakh content creators on our platform. And some of India's biggest YouTubers, like, say, an Ashish Vidyarthi, or let's say Chef Ranveer Brar, say Sadhguru. In fact, even Mr. Devendra Fadnavis himself on his YouTube channel, they use Hooper's music.
Oh,
So
really?
we've now become, you could say, in a way, we are soundtracking India's or Bharat's internet videos, right? That is where we are. So this is broadly the business model of Hooper. On one side, we own music and we offer it for subscription. And on the other side, we have a Capex light model where we are a marketplace. We offer third party music, and that is on a pay per use, and we keep a platform commission. So those are the two aspects of our business. What we pride ourselves on is the fact that the music is so beautifully tagged that, let's say, if you're a fashion brand and you're creating a get ready with me kind of a reel or a ethnic traditional reel, you can find the right kind of music in a matter of minutes. You are getting 100% copyright safety, and you get that extra engagement by using popular songs. So that is essentially the problem we are solving for. It is, in a way, a category creator. It's not a business you come across every day, but it's also a very exciting business.
Oh, indeed it is. I'm also going to pick up a few questions that I'm getting from people who are tuned in to the session, Gaurav.
Sure.
I think one of them, and I understand you're a B2B, and hopefully they would have got that. How does Hooper ensure fair royalty distribution to artists? Now, is that relevant? Because what you're doing is you're tying up with music labels, and the labels in turn, I suppose, are ensuring a fair royalty to the artist, right? But nevertheless, I thought
Yes.
I'd ask you this question. It's come from Amey Joshi here.
Absolutely. So, Amey, at the back end, we have a dashboard for every artist where the artist is able to track his revenues. As I said, typically around 60% goes to the artist or the label, 40% is Hooper's platform commission here. Could be more or less depending upon how big a label is, how big the catalog is. And apart from labels, we, as I said, have close to about 1,500 independent artists. The other part over here for us is that whenever a brand creates a reel, for us, we get every single reel. The brand has to actually link the reel to Hooper in order to ensure clearance. So we are able to see the usage also, and we are immediately on a monthly level able to supply, or rather transfer, the revenues to the artist. So it's a very clean and transparent mechanism. In the first mechanism, which is Hooper offering a subscription model, there we buy tracks upfront. So over the last 2.5 to 3 years, we have invested in a very large catalog, pretty much similar to a label ourselves, where we are offering the music for a subscription. We share revenues with the artist once we have recovered money from the subscription of that particular catalog or that particular track. Hope that answers the question.
Got it. And I'm jumping into another area, which again, a question has come from our audience today on AI generated music. Right. Now, while this is music, which is easy to understand, that there's an artist and there is a music label, and therefore there's a royalty. But
Yes.
there is also AI generated music now. Can that be copyrighted, and what legal challenges are there?
See, AI generated music is definitely here to stay. We ourselves use a fair bit of AI music in our personal lives today. Just yesterday, I was creating a reel myself and I was experimenting with AI music. So it's definitely here to stay. As we speak, AI music is trained on millions of tracks which they have not ethically licensed themselves, and they are facing multiple lawsuits from labels and, as we are aware, even bodies of independent artists now. And which is why, when it comes to using music in branded content, AI music platforms are not giving clearances to brands to use music commercially. So they say that you can use music at a personal level.
Hmm.
You cannot use music in a commercial or any kind of branded content. If you get a lawsuit, it's completely up to you. Right. So that is one problem. The
Hmm.
second problem that I see, and probably this links to my purpose of building this organization and given my own background as an artist, is at any given point of time, there exist millions of songs which are actually made by artists, which also need to be licensed, and somebody has to ensure that that revenue is given fairly to them, right? And we are seeing that even in the age of AI, there is a massive demand for different kinds of tracks belonging to old films. It could be some classical recordings, because sometimes you want songs by that particular artist or that film, right? And if there is no mechanism to transfer revenue back to them, then we risk moving into another era where only machines are creating tracks and the artist ends up getting pretty much nothing. Today, I will share this with a lot of you that if you're creating a song and distributing on a Spotify, you get about 3 paise per stream, right? And for most artists, their song will end up getting 5,000 streams, 10,000 streams, and which is why, as I said, they earn barely 50 rupees or 100 rupees, right? So there has to be a platform that is ensuring a fair and a large distribution of revenue. Like, let me see if I can pull up my screen again. Uh, just about a week ago, we had ITC. This was, I think, ITC has licensed several songs from our platform where they have used tracks made by artists. Each of the artists got about 14 to 18,000 rupees for every micro sync that happened. This is an Assamese artist called Drupad. And as you can see, multiple songs have been licensed by them. For an artist sitting in an Assam who is probably a 22, 23-year-old, getting their song to be used by a Bingo Tede Mede, getting paid about 18,000 rupees in passive income, it's not just income, it's validation for the artist in the eyes of sometimes even his own parents, right? That there's actually a large brand using your music. So for our company, we have realized that, and we have done our math extensively, we realize that this itself is a massive opportunity. We are using AI in every part now in terms of recommending tracks, in terms of tagging and so on. But we feel there are a few AI platforms, let them do their job. In that world, let us completely own that platform which actually works with the labels and artists. Because that itself is a humongous, humongous underserved market. So we have chosen to stick to that market, and that sort of aligns with my purpose also as an entrepreneur.
Sure. Another question, I think it's more an understanding of the difference between sync licensing and performance rights is what one of our viewers has asked us.
Yes. Uh,
If you can explain that, please.
yes, of course. I will explain that too. So the performance of a song can happen in the context of a live event. Okay. It could be, let's say, Ravi, you are having an office party with 500 people and you have invited a DJ to play. Now, what happens is typically we feel that I have paid the DJ, now it's his responsibility. That's all the cost that I would incur. But the DJ is playing songs by famous labels, right? So who is paying for that? So you have to pay a performance royalty or a performance, you have to procure a performance license to be able to play songs. It could be a party, it could be a mall, it could be a restaurant, a salon, gym. Wherever you are playing or performing songs, you need a performing license. It could also be, let's say, a band coming and playing popular songs by Kishore Kumar and Arijit Singh. So they are also using the lyrics and composition that belongs to a label. To make performance licensing simple, there are there is a very big body called the IPRS that gives the rights to the underlying works, which is the lyrics and the tune. And there are a couple of other bodies such as the Novex, PPL, RMPL that give the license for performance for the sound recordings. Now coming to Hooper, which is not only into performance, we are into sync, which means synchronization. So if you can see this Bingo Tede Mede, small reel, a particular visual is synchronized to an audio. Or I'll pull up, let's say, another example. This is a company that licensed a track from Hooper, and they synchronized one of our tracks to a visual they created. So in such cases, you need a synchronization license in order to synchronize that particular audio to a video. It's not just playing in the background, you're synchronizing it to a visual, right? So there is a separate license required for this. Here also, there are, at least Hooper has made this classification that there is a macro synchronization, which is television commercials, even in movies, by the way, synchronization happens a lot. Like, let's say if I'm producing a new movie by starring Shahid Kapoor or somebody, but I want to use an old song to create an impact. Maybe there's an action sequence, and I want to use an old song of an Amitabh Bachchan movie to create some dramatic effect. I will have to take a synchronization license from a Saregama or a Universal. Okay, then I can synchronize it to my new movie. So we are calling that as macro sync. And this bit where we are licensing music to these digital reels in today's digital era, we are referring to that as micro sync, where because this is happening at a micro level, a daily level, and you will see more and more of this as we get into the video creation era even further. So that is the micro synchronization. I hope I've been able to sort of answer that question.
Absolutely. No, very clear. And I think what is also evident is that, Hooper has in the process been able to, basically democratize the entire music licensing, especially, I guess, for smaller creators and brands, right?
Yes.
I mean, otherwise you just had these big label ecosystems, and as you said earlier, the kind of money that they ask for, can be mind-boggling at times. And
That's
you
right. And
get down to a level where you pay per use 2000 onwards to some of the prices that you showed us.
that is right. As in, just let's think about it. A large label is making a lot of money from platforms like YouTube, Facebook, some royalties from IPRS. So they make a few 100 crore there. Even when their songs are being violated, sometimes they go after a brand with a lawsuit, they might be able to extract some money. But what happens to these independent artists whose songs are also now becoming very popular? In India, about 30 to 35% songs that are now trending and playing on social media belong to independent artists.
Really?
So, and they are the most vulnerable lot, Ravi, because they are usually unrepresented, and it's very easy to trample upon their rights because you know that एक artist कैसे किसी के पीछे जाएगा. I will in fact share an incident here. So in August 2020, Instagram introduced Reels, and I already was a musician for about 14 odd years. I had fair bit of songs out there. Early 2021, a very large brand took two of my songs and created 6 to 8 digital videos. And I got a message from my cousin saying, Arey, Dada, these are your songs, right? So I was quite stunned because neither had they credited me, nor did they pay me, nor did they inform me. And I wrote to that brand. I had done a jingle for that brand about 4 years ago. So I wrote to some people there. They kept shuttling me from one person to another. Talk to Shubroto. Shubroto will say, talk to Aparna. Aparna will say, talk to X, Y, Z. The whole idea is by the time 2 months pass, you are already tired. You just let go of it.
That's perhaps their objective also.
That is their objective. But I kept going behind them. And finally, they requested me that, don't take the legal route. We don't have much money because this is a digital video. It's not a TVC. So lakhs to nahi hai, we'll pay you 50,000 rupees and so on, right? So I realized that, look, I could do all of this given my background, and I will not stand for my music being violated. But 99 out of 100 artists are not like that. They're simple people, and they will just say, okay, kya karu? It's okay, it's fine. And some of the artists, unfortunately, even believe that it is for my good that somebody used my music. It's probably become popular. But the brand could have happily paid 20, 30,000, and for that artist, it could be their cost of 1 month or 2 months of expenses, right? So somebody had to take up this cause, and yeah, we have taken that cause, and I know that while labels will be positively impacted immediately, the long-term benefits of a platform like Hooper will be to the independent artists. We are also spreading a lot of awareness. So in the last 2 months itself, we have done deals with Yashraj Film Music, 21 other labels. We have just done a deal with another large label, which will be disclosed. IPRS is already out there, our deal with them. We have done about 40 road shows with some of India's biggest agencies. So, right from our WPP, Group M, to folks like Marico, TCPL, we are meeting and informing them that now you don't have to worry about these lawsuits. You have a better option. And we are also informing the artists that you should be going for something like this. A lot of
That's
education needed.
Gaurav, I'm going to step back and we've, spoken about uh, the business of music licensing and where Hooper has come in, etc. But we would step back, and what I'm keen to ask you is, what has Hooper built in the last 2.5 to 3 years as a business? If you can share, what's been Hooper's journey as a business, as a startup. And this is something that, a lot of people on this session who are building their own startups would be keen to know, right? And what have been your biggest learnings during this journey as a startup?
Sure. So we started 3 years ago. We launched in 2022. Our first learning was that ours is a tough market. It is not one of those easy products or other. No product is easy, but ours is not one of those products where a buying behavior is completely established. Let's say today, if I have to buy, I consume ice cream and there is a new variant, at least my behavior of buying it, consuming it is set. Right. Unfortunately, here the buying behavior was not set. So we, right from the onset, realized that one, we would have to be prepared for educating creators, influencers. If any of you is setting or creating any business which is a category creator, patience is very much needed, right? Because alongside you, there'll be a lot of startups that could be hyper growth immediately because they might be into different products. But if you're into something that fewer people understand, as an entrepreneur, you yourself have to exhibit that kind of patience and commitment to the cause. That was the first part. The second bit, while today we have a lot of labels, if you see, we have also built our own library, which is a massive library. So there is, I would say, not a complete dependence on third party platforms. We also secured ourselves where at any given point, we own these assets. We are able to monetize them both from licensing and also as owners of copyright ourselves, right? So that turned out to be a good move because that revenue has just increased for us. Uh, we launched the platform in 22. I would say the first year our earnings were next to nothing because, as I said, it was more of just meeting people, educating, understanding what price will work. We have grown since then in a very fast rate, from about 70 lakh 1 year after launch, which is all we did as a startup in its first year, to 3.43 crore and now chasing 22 crore this year. So it has grown pretty quickly, but after 1 to 1.5 years of literally selling nothing, where we only met and met and met brands, customers, creators, showed them the platform, and you have to have a strong stomach for that period where you're not doing much in revenue. It can hit you. Like, I was an artist before that, and I was used to already doing lots of shows and so on. From there, running a company where you're burning money for a year was a little hard. But the good part is our investors stuck by us. We raised money from VCATS, IPV. A lot of my batchmates also, in fact, invested, from Ashneer Grover to Prabjeet Singh to Anshu Sharma of Magic Pin. They also became my sounding board sometimes for advice, as an entrepreneur, that, hey, I'm here at this stage, what do I do? Anshu, in fact, runs like a marketplace. So he gave me a lot of ideas around marketplaces. Ashneer gave me a lot of confidence. Just to, as an entrepreneur, you have to have that bullish approach. So this
Absolutely.
year we are chasing a target of about 22 crore. That would mean roughly uh, almost a 10 to 12x growth just in the last 2 odd years. Of course, now the Bollywood angle has helped us a lot. We have about 300,000 content creators on the platform, close to 18,000 content creators or influencers who subscribe to Hooper. We have just celebrated our 150th B2B client on Hooper and now Hooper Smash. So it's a very exciting and rewarding feeling to grow slow and steady.
Which
Another
are the big
learning,
languages you're not yet in India, and do you plan to sort of go expand beyond the shores of India?
we are present pretty much in all languages in India. I would say our South catalog can be a lot stronger. So those are tie-ups and deals that we are now exploring. So in the first 2 years, we made a choice to focus on the Hindi-speaking market simply because as a startup, you have to make some choices, as to which market you want to go after. It was a good choice, I think, for us because we were able to crack it pretty quickly, and we also were able to crack the Bollywood labels because of that. Now that we have done that, we are cracking deals with multiple different regional partners. Labels out of India also are in talks with Hooper to monetize their catalog in the Indian market. So many of these labels don't earn much from India. So they've realized that here is a good tech-led partner that is doing synchronization in a very systematic manner. So we will, in the near future, have some of these international catalogs too. Plans of expanding to international shores, yes, we had originally planned to do it, but we realized that India itself is a very, very large market and we have not completely cracked it yet. We are still in a stage where we still have to spread more awareness. There are a lot of brands. Like, think about it, there are almost 80,000 brands, close to 500,000 active influencers. And even if we take about 30 odd thousand branded reels made every day, there are close to 1 to 2 crore, 1.2 crore reels made every year. So we are still at a stage where India has to be cracked. It's a very exciting place. So we have deferred our plans to move abroad which we wanted to do last year. I think they will definitely not happen this year. I feel that we have a lot to build here, and especially now with the partners that we have. I think as an entrepreneur, my responsibility is also to give a lot of value to those who have backed us early. So I want to give as much value to them in terms of earnings from as their partner. From a learning perspective, I would like to share one more thing. Being close to the customer, how much ever you have read about it theoretically, I think that is the ultimate truth. Because that also tells you a lot in terms of their behavior of or potential behavior of how they will use their product. I think that first year that we invested in sitting a lot with agencies, brands, content creators, it really helped us later. So, while we all know that we have to build and ship fast, everyone wants to also scale fast. Sometimes, if you have to scale, you have to do some things that don't scale in the beginning. And we also did a lot of licensing work, which initially for the first year happened manually. Like it was manual effort of meeting brands, sitting with them, showing what would work. And I would say that would fly in the face of what we today are, which is a product led bit. But had we not done that, had we not even sat with all those artists and deeply understood what is it that they expect in terms of earnings, I think we would have not been sitting on Hooper Smash and some of these other parts that we've built today.
This is awesome. And, Gaurav, this is possibly the first time that, I'm getting the feeling that despite having chatted for 45, 50 minutes, I get the feeling we haven't even begun. At least for me personally, it's been really exciting. And, but what we probably have to do is now close.
Sure.
And I genuinely feel possibly there's a strong case for a, season 2. Of Hooper on CII, this startup session. But
Love that.
thanks so much, really, for this really insightful session, Gaurav. On behalf of our audience and on behalf of Ninad and the, startup subcommittee of the CII Western region, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Ninad, and the entire team of CII and everyone else who's attended. I hope you found this informative. Do reach out, in case there is anything you want to sort of collaborate on. Would be very happy to have a chat. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you.
Bye.
Same.
Thanks a lot.